Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Lifestyle with Dr. Moby. I'm Dr. Moby, and today we are honored with great guests. Let's welcome Mr. Douglas William. How are you, sir?
Very good this evening, Dr. Moby. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, sir. It's been an honor. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Uh, Douglas Peterson, I'm a debut author. I just came out with a book in May of this year, The Death and Resurrection of Baseball. I live in a small town northwest of Chicago, about an hour, a town
Hmm.
called McHenry.
Hmm.
And I've been living here since 1992.
Hmm.
Married with 6 kids and 8 grandkids. So having a good life.
Well, that is pretty busy, Grandpa.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your journey. As you said, this is your rookie, right? First book, and
First
hopefully,
novel. Yeah.
very nice, very nice, very nice.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I've enjoyed writing my whole life. I've been an IT guy
Mm-hmm.
since the 1980s and wrote a lot of technical documentation. I've done, newsletters and kinds of things like that, and written stuff for websites and stuff. And I was always told I had a gift for writing. I just, okay, I just kind of tucked that away, and then I don't know, probably about 2014 or 15 or so, I started thinking about, maybe I should write a novel.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a great love for baseball,
Mm-hmm.
and some things just started bouncing around in my head, and this storyline came together for this novel that we're here to talk about tonight. So.
Okay, yeah. If you wanna tell audience what prompted you to write.
Uh, well, I just had this story that started developing inside of me about, kind of a what if scenario about what if baseball were to die as a sport? What would happen?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple things that led to that idea. One was an article I read many years ago about games that kids used to play
Mm-hmm.
before the first American Civil War, and those games have been lost to history and forgotten. And and then I read some other books. I read David Aikman's "When the Almond Tree Blossoms," which is about a Second American Civil War. I read that back in the '90s, and then several years ago, I read William Fortune's novel "One Second After," which is an apocalyptic novel about an EMP attack on the United States. And been involved in coaching baseball for many years. I was a commissioner of our church softball league here in town for about 15 years, and just have a great love for the game. And like I said, about 2014, 15, this idea started to coalesce around the idea of, what if, baseball were to die as a sport? And then kind of led to the storyline that we have in the novel, where the story picks up with a 12-year-old boy in McHenry who becomes the focal point in trying to bring back the lost sport of baseball, which has been dead for over 100 years.
Hmm. So, is it about how they come back, or tell us a
Correct.
little?
Yeah, the storyline picks up 100 years after a second American Civil War has devastated the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken a long time to recover from it. And there's been parts of American culture that were lost as a part of the war. And
Mm-hmm.
one of them is the sport of baseball. At least in the storyline, baseball was in trouble before the war starts. But then when it does start, it's kind of like the proverbial nail in the coffin. So fast forward to the year 2166. That's the beginning of the story in
Mm-hmm.
chapter one with this 12-year-old boy, and he goes on this adventure. And like I say, becomes the focal point. Him and his family and buddies get involved in trying to bring back this lost game that they kind of accidentally stumble upon, and sets off a chain of events that sets them on their quest to bring
Mm-hmm.
back this lost game of baseball.
And so, is that they basically, it's assuming at that point it is dead, and so they bring back
Correct. Yeah.
uh,
There's not a soul alive that even remembers the game because, like I say, it's been 100 years has passed,
oh my God, yeah.
and the game dies right at the outset of the Second Civil War. So all this time has passed. No one remembers it. Um, Part of the war sees the destruction of all data through a computer virus, and so
Mhm.
all this knowledge has been lost. And
Wow.
slowly but surely, they start to recover some of the knowledge, and but still, like I say, there's missing parts of American culture, and uh, and Joel gets involved in rediscovering one of those missing pieces, which is the game of baseball. So the story follows his exploits to his discovery of the sport, and then how to relearn it and teach it to his friends, and try to restore it back to uh, to America.
Oh, very creative. I never thought. I mean, that is, it's not that it can't happen, but I think it is very creative for
Yeah.
to kind of think of ways how to bring it back. And first of all, it died just because of the war, or was it dead before the
Well,
war?
there's other factors. So right now, I mean, just be clear to your listeners that I don't propose in the novel that
Hmm.
baseball is going to die this year, next year, or 10 years
Hmm.
from now.
Uh-huh.
But when you look at some of the things that are going on with the sport, there
Hmm.
are definitely some warning signs that 40 years from now could baseball be in trouble, and the point of
Hmm.
the story is that there is indeed trouble
Hmm.
uh, when you go that far out in the future. One
Hmm.
thing I see is that, the thing we used to call sandlot ball. I grew up in the 60s playing sandlot ball. And that sandlot ball was basically just you and your buddies getting together and go finding an empty lot or a ball field that wasn't being used and just playing ball without any adult intervention at all. And that's pretty much all but dead. You just if you go buy an empty ball field, I mean, pretty much you're not going to see kids just playing a pickup game of baseball anymore. I mean, there might be some isolated areas where they still play sandlot ball, but typically, if you go past a vacant lot or a field or an empty baseball field, you just don't see any kids playing baseball. Not unless they're under adult supervision in a league. And on that level, uh, when you go to a typical town that has some kind of youth baseball program, a lot of those have gotten a lot smaller, or they've disappeared entirely. I mean, just in my neck of the woods, there's 3 or 4 leagues that disappear. They're not functioning anymore. And the one that my son and I were involved with when I was a coach when he was playing ball as a younger lad, that's half the size it was when he was playing back in the late '90s and early 2000s. So you take that, and then you add a third ingredient of, you used to be able to watch baseball games for free all the time, especially your favorite hometown team. You just turn on the TV and watch it. Well, that's no longer the case. You've got to buy some special sports package in order to watch your favorite baseball team in the town where you live. And some people just don't want to pay the extra money for that. So you have fewer kids involved in the game. You have adults that don't choose to spend the money to watch the game. And it's like kind of like a perfect storm brewing that when you take this further out in time, it just seems like there could be trouble down the road. And again, back to the youth level, soccer is increasingly more popular, I think, than baseball in some locales. And you also have the increasing popularity of lacrosse.
Hmm.
That's gotten very popular. And obviously video games. You see kids heavily. They'd rather play video games, and they'd rather play sports on a video game than actually play it in person. And
Yeah.
so you take all those ingredients together, and for me, it just seems like, oh, let's take this and make a what if proposition. What if something like baseball were to actually die in the future? So in the storyline, the last game of baseball is played at the outbreak of the Civil War in the year 2061. So
Mhm. Okay, so I want to ask you. Um, Also, what concerns is, like you said, a lot of video games, and it's actually replacing a lot of physical
yeah,
activities,
oh yeah, yeah,
and that's a big concern, for all of us. Also, I think with sports, which I've seen with other sports, there are ways they are changing it to a shorter duration. I think those days are gone when people will have sit for hours, or I'm sure I won't be. I mean, I can give example of one game, and if you're familiar with, is cricket.
oh yeah,
So
yeah.
when I was growing up, it used to be 5 days, then reduced to 3 days, then reduced to one day, and now reduced to 2 hours, 3 hours. So
Okay.
so can it happen that baseball duration might be reduced from long, what they have right now format?
Well, that's one of the things that adults are complaining about when they watch, if they happen to watch a game on television, or if they attend a game, is that the games are typically lasting over 3 hours.
Mm.
And there's a lot of boredom during that 3 hours where there's nothing going on. I think at least at the professional level, to their credit, they're trying to speed the game along. So, they're starting to introduce a pitch clock where you got to get the pitch off at a certain amount of time, and some other things to try and speed the game along to make the games not last over 3 hours. I think ideally, most people would enjoy a baseball game that's anywhere between 2 and 2.5 hours, and after that, I think they start to lose interest.
And I think same stands for NFL. I mean, although the game is for 1 hour max, but they, with all the commercials and all that, it lasts 3 hours. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right. Good point.
so
Good point.
so I think, I don't know. I feel attention span of people is getting shorter and shorter. Like the
That's
apps.
for sure.
Now you can't talk for anyone with more than a minute or half a minute,
Well,
and they think you are like a social media video, so fast
and
forwarded.
then the other thing too is like if you're in your car in the morning and you drive past a bus stop, and there'd be 10 kids at the bus stop, and there's not a one of them talking to one another. They're all looking down at their screens,
Mhm.
and, and the addiction to the screens is just really something. I mean, I even see it in my own family, and I have to fight it personally myself. So, I have to, try to police myself and okay, try to put the screen down and interact with my wife or my kids or grandkids. And sometimes I fail, and my wife has to interact for me and say, okay, put the screen down. So,
Yeah,
but
no, and yeah, that is true. I know a few teenagers, they are sitting in the car back seat, but they would not talk whole duration. They
yeah,
would they would text each other that I'm mad with you, but they would not talk to each other.
yeah. I know one child that had a voicemail that says, please don't call me, just text me. And I had a discussion with them, and I says, "Hey, what's with the voicemail about? Don't call me, text me only. I mean, it's okay to pick up the phone and interact with human beings because when you have that voice connection with another human being, you pick up you pick up tone, inflection, you pick up emotion, which when you get a Morse a text, it might as well be Morse code. I mean, there's no way you can tell. I mean, you can throw an emoji in there every once in a while, but I mean that doesn't replace human voice conversation. You know, and I was interviewed just about 2 weeks ago by another host, and he was saying that he's in the music, and he's saying that even in his area with music, he's starting to see less and less interest by the kids because they just want to create stuff via their phone or their iPad, and they don't want to pick up a guitar or some other musical instrument that's physical and learn how to play it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Very interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, the music industry is definitely changed. I mean, all other industries are also changing. I think it's gonna be new era. Yeah, so I think what you're saying is not far. It can happen even before 2060, without civil war, without anything. That
Sure.
it might disappear, and we have video games, and we might have those days are totally gone. And they,
Yeah.
if you look at, there's a big concern in NFL about concussion,
Sure. Yeah.
and then they will say, okay, this is health hazard or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
The, then
Back in the '90s, there was a baseball strike that lasted an entire year. They canceled the World Series, and then the following year, when baseball came back, the attendance collapsed, and they were it was noticeable because the fans were so upset at what had happened the prior year, and there was thankfully, I know it was that the year after that, but they had that home run uh, uh, duel between Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa. A lot of people credited that with helping bring back the fans into the stands because unfortunately, it looks like you know possibly performance enhancing drugs could have been involved. I'll say could, but the point being is that while it was underway, there was such a huge increase in re-interest in the game that it helped bring some fans back. And in my novel, uh, another ingredient that helps kill the sport is there's a 3 year strike. They go on strike for 3 years, and that just totally, you know, it does a number on the fan base, among other things.
so I think you mentioned an important point, that's drugs. So let's emphasize a little bit on that. With sports, with records and setting and all that, and I'm sure you're familiar with many players trying to use these drugs to enhance their records, and unfortunately, that did not help the sports. We got negative publicity.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think that is playing a big role now with a lot of sports?
You know, the circle of friends that I have and family, when that all came to light, it really turned off a lot of people when they realized what was going on. Now, I think that, there's no way you can point a finger at any one sport, but it seems like overall, all the major leagues for all the sports, football, soccer, basketball, baseball, so on and so forth. They've all done a good job of trying to clean that up and to remove any hint that the players are engaging in illegal activity with performance enhancing drugs. So I tip my hat to all of them because I think, like I say, they've done a good job of cleaning that mess up.
And the other thing I've seen, not in baseball maybe, but in NFL and others, they were stripped of their titles and even everything if they are not a good character anymore, or
Yeah.
they are misbehaving, let's say with animals or with abuse story or any of those undesirable things. So, do you think that should be there?
Well, I think it has to be taken on a case by case basis. I know that when Aaron Judd hit his 60-second home run here just a week or so ago, I know the one of the sons of Roger Maris called him the clean home run king. Um, and that's a pretty powerful statement coming from the son of Roger Maris.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what does that do to the other guys that have more than 62 home runs in a single season? I mean, that's not for me to decide. That's way above my pay grade. So
Yeah. So what
way
about
above my pay grade.
so what about that they should be role model in terms of their character and so forth? So
Well, I think when you look at the sport of baseball throughout its history, clearly there have been stars that were looked upon as role models. And you look at
Mhm.
you know Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig.
Yeah.
You look at Jackie Robinson
Hmm.
and Ernie Banks,
Hmm.
and I could just go on and on and on. Where they had legions of young fans that anytime they had a chance to go to a ballpark, they'd be begging to get an autograph from one of those stars.
Hmm.
So I think yeah, definitely professional players that enjoy early success and have a long career. I think they do have an obligation to play the game well and to play it clean and to set a good example, especially for the youth.
Hmm. And I think you're absolutely right. These factors do play important role,
Sure.
because we put them at a highest level,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, so so
Right.
and
And
it
it's important too. It's important that when a parent or guardian sees a child, for lack of a better word, worshiping, uh, a professional player like that, it's incumbent upon the parent or guardian to, explain to the child, or hey, look, they're very good at what they're doing, but they are human beings. They do have their own imperfections, and they don't get too carried away with this.
that is true. Well, it was a great conversation. Thank you for coming to our show and introducing your book. Good luck. So tell us how people can read your book. Is it on Amazon, all the
Yeah.
stores?
So the death and resurrection of baseball, you can pick it up on Amazon, Walmart online, Barnes and Noble online, Target, Apple Books. But yeah, I would really love your support,
Hmm.
and if you like it, leave some good reviews and help spread the word along. People
Sure.
that are reading it are really enjoying it. It's invoking very strong memories of their childhood and the undercurrent of the what has happened with the Second Civil War prior to the story beginning in the book. But that undercurrent was also generating strong thoughts and conversations about where we are now currently as a country and where we could be headed if we don't relearn the art of getting along with one another, especially when we don't agree.
Oh, yes, that's I think a beautiful thought, and thank you for bringing that attention to everyone. And
Sure.
good luck to. Also, just a final question, as a first time writer and author, any tips or anything you want to share?
If you feel like you've got a story inside of you, just make the time and just start writing.
Mhm.
I saw all kinds of videos and things about how to write and all this other stuff, and I was like, I know I've got this story inside of me. I'm just going to sit down and let it come out of me. It
Mhm.
didn't all come out at once. It took 4 years. There were times when life got in the way and sometimes writer's block, but then it would eventually just start coming out of me again. And then, do your due diligence and get your beta readers and some good editors and away you go.
Okay, very, 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 very creative. Thank you for sharing, and good luck. And come back anytime and give us an update how it's going. Okay.
I really appreciate the opportunity. So thank you, Dr. Moby.
Take
Really,
care, sir. Bye.
sincerely. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.